Hello and welcome to Critical Care MD. My name is Dr. Vikas Koparapu and I am a physician in pulmonary and critical care medicine. My goal with Critical Care MD lectures is to help you understand fundamental concepts of critical care medicine so that you are better prepared for your ICU rotations and you are more confident in caring for the critically ill patients. Before watching this lecture, I would highly recommend reviewing my video on general principles of point of care ultrasound, where I covered several important basics that will be relevant to this lecture. Link should pop up on the screen or it will be provided in the description. Pretty much any probe can be used for lung ultrasound exam, but the two commonly used ones are the phased array probe, also known as square probe, and the linear probe. Both have their advantages and disadvantages. Phased array probe is used for cardiac assessment and it provides the convenience of examining the lungs as well without having to switch between the probes. The main advantage of phased array probe compared to linear probe is that it provides excellent depth of penetration, so it is useful in examining obese patients where there may be a thick chest wall. It is also useful in evaluation of pleural effusion, again for the same reason, there is good depth of penetration. The main advantage of a linear probe compared to phased array probe is it provides high resolution images or much better clarity images. However, because the depth of penetration is less, it has limited value in evaluation of obese patients and pleural effusions. For the purpose of examination, the lungs are arbitrarily divided into 6 zones. Two imaginary lines are drawn, one along the anterior axillary line and two along the posterior axillary line, and one horizontal line is drawn along the fifth intercostal space, which runs just below the nipple. With these landmarks, the lungs are divided into 6 zones: two anteriorly, the superior and inferior, two laterally, and two posteriorly. It would be advisable to examine all 6 zones of the lung, but it may be time taking. So, one alternative approach could be starting with auscultation first and then using ultrasound for better characterization of abnormal zones. To understand ultrasound appearance of the lungs, it is important to understand two important ultrasound artifacts: one, acoustic shadowing, and two, reverberation artifact. Let's start with acoustic shadowing. When the ultrasound probe is placed over a rib, it blocks majority of the ultrasound waves. This is because ribs being dense calcium containing structures, they have high acoustic impedance. They basically either absorb or scatter or reflect most of the ultrasound waves, and there's not much that can penetrate distal to the rib. So this gives the appearance of a black shadow. So essentially what we are seeing on the screen is the top part is the subcutaneous fat and intercostal muscles, and then once rib comes into the picture, it basically leaves a dense shadow distal to it. So this is all rib shadow. Now let's talk about reverberation artifact. If we place the probe in between the ribs, this is what happens. The ultrasound waves travel through the subcutaneous fat and the intercostal muscles and reach the pleura. Below the pleura, there is air-filled lung, and air does not conduct ultrasound rays. So pleura reflects most of the ultrasound waves back to the probe. In fact, more than 99% of the ultrasound waves are actually reflected back by the pleura. So the ultrasound probe receiving this signal displays a bright line corresponding to the pleura on the screen. Since there is so much energy left behind, some of those waves are going to travel back from the probe or the tip of the probe towards the pleura and be reflected again. So this second signal is analyzed by the ultrasound probe and it draws a line equidistant from the first line. This is because it takes exactly twice the amount of time for the second set of waves to travel back to the probe compared to the first set of waves, except that this signal is less intense because of some of the energy lost during the travel. Similarly, there's going to be a third reflection and another line is drawn equidistant but less intense compared to the second line. So this is how it appears on the screen. The yellow arrows are showing the pleura and the red arrows are showing the artifacts of pleura which are generated by the ultrasound waves traveling back and forth between the tip of the probe and the pleura. Note that as you go from top to bottom, the brightness of the line becomes less and less. These are called A lines, and this is a normal lung ultrasound finding. With that background understanding, keep in mind that there are two cardinal features of normal lung ultrasound. The first is A-line pattern, something we saw in the previous slide. The second is lung sliding. Let's understand that. The pleura is not a single membrane. It is composed of two layers, the parietal pleura and the visceral pleura. During respiration, as the lung expands and shrinks, these two layers slide against each other, and that's basically lung sliding. We will be able to see that during respiration. Some people describe this as shimmering effect. Some people describe this as appearance of ants crawling. Regardless, it is important to look for lung sliding during ultrasound exam. Here is an example of lung sliding as seen with the linear ultrasound. Notice better image resolution compared to the phased array probe. As you examine the lungs from top to bottom, at some point you're going to reach the level of diaphragm. Diaphragm is a dynamic structure, meaning it moves down with each inspiration. So during ultrasound exam, you can see the diaphragm moving caudally with each inspiration and revealing the lung above it. This is called curtain sign and is a normal finding. We will cover four main pathologies that can be seen during lung ultrasound: B lines, absence of lung sliding, features of consolidation, and pleural effusion. Let's start with B lines. You're looking at a slide of lung histology. Clusters of alveoli are separated from each other by thin interalveolar septa, which constitutes the pulmonary interstitium. Normally, this is a very thin microscopic structure and is not going to be seen on ultrasound exam. However, if there is any disease process that increases the fluid within the interstitium, for example, pulmonary edema or pneumonitis, that can thicken these septa and make them big enough to be seen on ultrasound exam. For example, take this CT scan. On the right side, there is increased fluid in the interstitium and air spaces, whereas on the left side, it is appearing normal. So if we do a point of care ultrasound exam on the left lung, it is going to show normal A-line pattern. But here on the right side, since there is increased fluid in the interstitium, that is going to be picked up by ultrasound. And this is how it is going to look on lung ultrasound. On the top, this bright white line is the pleura, and these vertical lines radiating down the screen, these are called B lines. Again, these indicate interstitial thickening. They become broader as we go towards the bottom of the screen. It may be useful to remember B lines as beacon lights. They originate at the source and they become broader as they go farther. Here is an example of B lines. B lines have the same significance as inspiratory crackles on lung ultrasound. Three or more B lines within an intercostal space are considered significant or pathologic. When you see diffuse bilateral B lines, the main differentials include pulmonary edema, bilateral or atypical pneumonia, ARDS, and interstitial lung disease. These are all typically diffuse bilateral processes. Focal B lines can be seen in pneumonia, regional atelectasis, and pulmonary infarction. Now let's move on to features of lung consolidation. Normally, lungs are air-filled structures, so you will be seeing A-line pattern and lung sliding. That changes when the lungs are filled up with dense fluid, for example, pneumonia, or when there is regional atelectasis. Under these circumstances, the lungs become more like solid organs, so they can have an appearance very similar to liver. For example, in this particular slide, this structure here is the diaphragm. Below the diaphragm, we are looking at spleen. This is kidney. And above the diaphragm, this structure here is basically a consolidated lung. This appearance is very similar to the appearance of liver on ultrasound, hence the term hepatization of the lung. This is how the chest x-ray of this particular patient looked. Note dense left lower lobe consolidation corresponding to the lung or the left lower lung above the diaphragm here. Here is a zoomed in view of the same finding of hepatization of the lung. Here is another example where we are seeing dense consolidation involving the right lower lung as seen on a slice of the CT scan here. A linear ultrasound probe was used to examine this region of the lung. What we are seeing here is this structure here is the diaphragm, this is the rib and the dark shadow distal to it, and this region here corresponds to the consolidated lung or the hepatized lung. Another useful finding when there is lung consolidation is air bronchograms. These are basically airways that are seen conspicuously against a background of consolidated lung. On the ultrasound exam of lung, they actually appear bright white, unlike dark as seen on CT scan here. And the reason for that is air bronchograms are basically air-filled structures, and air does not conduct ultrasound waves. So the airways are strong reflectors of ultrasound waves, and just like pleura, these are seen as bright white structures. There are two types of air bronchograms: static air bronchograms, which do not move with respiration, and dynamic air bronchograms, which move during respiration. Let's look at an example of dynamic air bronchograms. Here is a zoomed in view. See how these bright white dots are moving in and out with each breath. Dynamic air bronchograms are actually considered specific for diagnosis of pneumonia. Now let's talk about pleural effusion. The chest X-ray here is showing blunting of the cardiophrenic and costophrenic angles suggestive of pleural fluid. Here's what the ultrasound exam is showing. Pleural effusion appears as a dark anechoic structure. It is important to identify the boundaries. On one side there is diaphragm, and on the other side there is a compressed wedge of the lung. It is important to identify these borders as sometimes subdiaphragmatic fluid or ascites could be confused for pleural effusion. Ultrasound is a good tool to assess the amount of pleural fluid. Based on this chest X-ray, the AP film, it would be difficult to estimate the amount of pleural fluid. CT scan showed moderate amount of fluid, and about 800 cc of pleural fluid was drained from the right side in this patient. Pleural effusion may be simple, meaning having the appearance of a uniform anechoic structure as we saw in the last example, or it may be complex. Take a look at this example. Notice the white fibrinous strands and septations within the pleural fluid. So this goes with a complex pleural effusion, usually indicates a long-standing exudative process like malignant pleural effusion or parapneumonic effusion. Here is another example of complex pleural effusion. This is the diaphragm, this is the pleural fluid above it with some dense white material inside it. Lung ultrasound can be very useful in the diagnosis of pneumothorax. In fact, ultrasound is more sensitive than X-ray for diagnosis of pneumothorax. In order to correctly identify pneumothorax, we need to recognize a few important findings, starting with absence of lung sliding. Here is an example of lack of lung sliding. As we previously discussed, sliding is basically a shimmering effect of the pleura due to the sliding of parietal and visceral pleura against each other. On the left hand side, you don't see that, you see a static pleural line, but on the right hand side, you see a normal lung sliding. While absence of lung sliding can be a feature of pneumothorax because the parietal and visceral pleura are separated from each other in pneumothorax, there are some other conditions as well that can be associated with absence of lung sliding. For example, when there is a history of pleurodesis, when there are malignant adhesions between parietal and visceral pleura, when there is a large bulla where there is not much ventilation going on, there's not going to be much sliding. And apnea. For example, let's say a patient got intubated and the ET tube is too deep and is placed in the right mainstem bronchus. All the air that is going in through the tube is only ventilating the right lung. So if you do a point of care ultrasound on the left side, you're not going to see sliding. It is not because there is a pneumothorax, but it is basically because there is no ventilation happening in the left lung. A finding that is specific for pneumothorax is lung point. Let's understand how it works. Unless the pneumothorax is massive, it only separates part of the lung from the chest wall, and part of the lung is still in contact with the chest wall. So if you do a point of care ultrasound exam here where lung is still in contact with chest wall, you will see lung sliding. However, if you focus this region, there won't be lung sliding. If you examine carefully, you're going to reach a point where there is going to be lung sliding on one side of the screen, and there will not be any lung sliding on the other side where the lung is separated from the chest wall. That basically is lung point. Let's look at an example. Here you're seeing presence of lung sliding on this side and absence of lung sliding on this part of the pleura. Here is a zoomed in example. Notice lung sliding here, but absence of lung sliding here. So to diagnose pneumothorax, we need three findings. First is absence of lung sliding, as we already discussed. Second is absence of B lines, because when you see B lines, they basically indicate a pulmonary interstitial process, which means the lung is in contact with the chest wall. So when you see B lines, even if there is absence of lung sliding, you cannot diagnose pneumothorax. Finally, lung point. This finding is specific for pneumothorax. Sometimes you will hear the terms Seashore sign and Barcode sign. These are basically M-mode equivalents of presence of lung sliding and absence of lung sliding respectively. Details of M-mode were discussed in the video on general principles of ultrasound. Let's start with understanding Seashore sign. When you ultrasound normal pleura where there is lung sliding and you put on the M mode, this is what you're going to see. Since there is sliding of the parietal and visceral pleura, everything distal to that is going to appear as if it's moving. This is basically a reverberation artifact from the reflection of the pleura. So if you look at this part of the screen, you see a fine grainy sandy pattern. So everything above the pleural line, which corresponds to the chest wall, is going to appear static, whereas everything distal to the pleural line is going to have that fine grainy pattern. This is a normal finding. It is called Seashore sign because it kind of gives the appearance of sea here and a distinct shore here. When there is lack of pleural sliding, there is no movement of the parietal and visceral pleura, so everything distal to that also is going to appear static. So in this particular example, there is no lung sliding, and what you're seeing is a uniform pattern as if someone took a pencil and drew out these lines without any interruption. This is called Barcode sign because it resembles a barcode. This is abnormal and is consistent with absence of lung sliding. That concludes today's discussion. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please support my channel by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons. Also, share it with someone who you think will benefit from this lecture. Finally, I would love to hear your thoughts. Is there any part of this video you found particularly helpful? Is there anything I could have added to make this video more useful to you? And what topics would you like to see me discuss in the future? Do leave a comment and I will see you in the next video.